Readers will now understand. Decepticons will never leave your planet alone. And we needed them to believe we had gone. For today, in the name of freedom, we take the battle to them.
Transformers 3, or Transformers Dark of the Moon, turned 10 years old today on June 28th, and I have a confession to make. I kinda like this one. But does that make this movie good, though? No, not at all. But I definitely don't think this movie is bad, though, unlike the last one. For the most part, people can agree that Dark of the Moon is the best sequel movie, but they still kind of categorize it as a part of the all the Transformers sequels are bad conversation, and I personally don't think that's fair. Even the creators of this movie agreed and acknowledged that Transformers 2 was bad in the special features section of this movie.
I think the reaction to the second movie played a large part in the development of the third movie. Michael was very aware, as was the studio and Lorenzo. Everyone was aware that the reaction to number 2 was not as favorable as it had been to number 1.
It's an introduction of new characters. You know, how do we keep this exciting? How do we keep the discovery? New people, new faces. But we overdid that.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Oh, I'm sorry, Transformers 2.
Some of the flaws in it can be traced to the guild strike and not having enough time to really develop a story that might get to a deeper character level. So I think the design of Revenge of the Fallen became about spectacle first.
So you can genuinely tell that they put forth a good amount of effort on trying to make this movie better than Revenge of the Fallen. And for the most part, they did just that. Dark of the Moon is significantly better than Revenge of the Fallen in my opinion. However, there are still some things holding this movie back from being a great movie. But before we dive more into this movie, as tradition, we gotta look at that good old merchandise. Alright, before we go to the actual figures, I found these two books that I have. I probably read these like once, but I got like this Bumblebee and this Megatron one with Bumblebee randomly put here for some reason. Alright, first we have the Deluxe Bumblebee, which is a pretty good toy. I don't really have any complaints about him. You have the Dark of the Moon Sideswipe, where he's not a convertible, but he's really lacking silver. He's kind of like a dull gray for some reason. I have the Dark of the Moon Jolt, and I remember I got this for $5 at Walgreens, and he doesn't even look like he did in 2. He's just gray. He's not even in the movie, so they really just wanted to get this character out the way. I have the Dark of the Moon Ratchet, which looks really great. It's just that he's kind of small. If he was bigger, this would be like a top tier toy, because he's actually really fun to play with from what I remember. I have Topspin and Roadbuster. These are both pretty good toys. For some reason, Roadbuster isn't weaponized, but they did fix that with the Studio Series one. I never got Leadfoot because trying to find him was like trying to find a woman that actually likes you. I have the Dark of the Moon Barricade, who showed up for like 5 minutes in the movie, but yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about him. And I have the very tiny Dark of the Moon Starscream. This is the series that I noticed that the Transformers got noticeably shorter by this time, so that was interesting. On to the Voyagers, I have the Voyager class Optimus Prime, who's really loose. His legs are super loose, and then when you put him back, his back goes up like that, so that's kind of unfortunate, but I remember I had fun with them, but I have a better one now, so I'm not too mad about it. Got the Voyager class Ironhide, and this figure's pretty good, but for some reason his arms are super strange. I don't know what happened here, but he just looks really weird to me. I don't know why. I have the Dark of the Moon Shockwave, and I remember I got this at Disney World back when the movie was coming out, and yeah, this figure slaps, bro. It's not as good as the Studio Series one now, but back then this was like my favorite figure. This is such a good looking figure, still is. I also have the Dark of the Moon Megatron, and he looks really skinny because he looks way bulkier in the movie, but I mean, it's not a bad toy though. It's just a little inaccurate, that's all. Moving on to the leader classes, I have the leader class Ironhide. I'm gonna have to move the camera back. Leader class Ironhide, which really looks really great. He has blue on him for some reason, but other than that, this is a really great looking leader class. He's definitely one of my favorites. We also have the leader class Sentinel Prime, who was a pain in the butt to stand up, so that's why I'm holding it with my hand now. And yeah, this figure looked pretty good back then, but noticing now he's kind of like fat in the chest area, and he's really top heavy, which again makes him hard to stand, so that's why I'm holding him. But overall, it's a pretty good toy. I like how this one comes with a shield and the Studio Series one doesn't. Then we have the Leader Class Bumblebee, which is honestly a really bad figure. The articulation on this thing is horrid, and he comes with this thing. And you guys seen Bumblebee, he's a pretty bad toy. I'm just gonna put him over here. But let me talk about this thing really quick. For people who have this, look at this. Okay, so for people, I can't even talk because it's making too much noise. Shut up. Okay, so for, oh my god. Okay, so for people who has this toy, you probably understand my frustration with this thing. Literally any movement makes it go off. And there's been times where I've been sleeping and it will just make a random noise and I wake up and I get scared. To anyone who has this toy, you can probably relate to it, but this thing sucks. I hate this thing with a passion. And yeah, that's pretty much all of my Dark of the Moon toys. I had a lot more than I expected when I got these out.
Now let's talk about the Transformers 3 video game. This game is actually pretty solid. It's hands down the best movie game we've gotten, and it's probably because it was made by High Moon Studios. If you didn't know, High Moon Studios made Transformers War for Cybertron and Fall for Cybertron, which are some of my favorite games of all time. Now, the Transformers 3 video game isn't even close to being as good as those games, obviously, because it has a much smaller budget and all that, but it plays really similarly to those games, and I just overall had a fun time playing it, and I recommend picking it up if you find it somewhere for cheap. Alright, now let's get back to the movie. Dark of the Moon is actually the first movie I remember following up on before release, unlike the first two. I remember seeing the Super Bowl ad for this movie and I got absolutely hyped for it. I started looking up videos of them filming it, and me and my good friend Pierre started coming up with our own little theories that we thought was going to happen in the film. We thought Dark Energon was going to play a part in the movie because Transformers Prime was doing that at the time, and we weren't sure if this was going to be the final movie, so we also thought Unicron was going to be in it as well. Of course, we were very wrong on our theories, but little 8-year-old us had a blast doing that. I also remember this movie came out on a Tuesday and I had to beg my dad to take me because we usually saw movies on a Friday or Saturday. Thankfully, my dad took me and we saw the movie, and 8-year-old me genuinely thought that was the best movie I've ever seen. Obviously, now that I'm 18, I don't think so anymore, but that first viewing of this movie for me was so magical. Now, let's talk about some of the behind the scenes for this movie, because there is actually some interesting stuff to talk about. Let's get the no-brainer covered first on how Megan Fox is just not in this movie. If you didn't know, Megan Fox was fired from Transformers 3 right before they started filming because in an interview she compared Michael Bay to Hitler. Now that's definitely one way to get fired. What's funny is that Michael Bay didn't even take offense to the joke, but it was Steven Spielberg who produced these movies that took offense to it, and he demanded she get fired immediately. As a kid, it didn't really bother me, to be honest, but at the same time I knew she wasn't gonna be in the movie ahead of time, so I guess I just kind of prepared myself for it. And also, Rosie Huntington something Whitley, I think whatever, did a fine job taking her place in the movie anyway. In an effort to make this movie better, they also removed a few Autobots that were in the last one from this one. This included AIDS and STD, which is Skids and Mudflap. Thank God. What's funny is that they were actually gonna be in the movie, but due to the amount of backlash they got, they were cut last minute. There are actual set photos of their vehicle modes with their new paint jobs, which, I'm not gonna lie, they do actually look pretty cool, and they still released those toys with those said paint jobs for the Dark of the Moon line. Apparently, before they got cut from the movie, while Sentinel's destroying their base looking for the pillars, there was actually gonna be a scene where he kills Skids and Mudflap while doing so, and now I kinda wish they were in the movie just so I can see them die. Well, technically they are in the movie, because in one shot you can actually see their cars drive up with the other Autobots in the very back of the room, so that's kinda interesting. Guys, it saddens me to say that they cut another fan favorite Autobot from these movies, which is Jolt. I know guys, put down the pitchforks. I wanted Jolt in the movie just as much as you did, and to honor his legacy, let's look back at all his scenes from the last movie.
What is the meaning of this?
You are President of the United States.
We should leave this planet.
That's not what Optimus would want.
Sir! Spotted! Jolt! Electrify! Transplant those afterburners!
The RC twins didn't come back as well. Well, one of them that did survive, and yeah, that's pretty much all they cut from the movie. Okay, now on to the actual movie. I know I said that last time, but I mean it for real this time, so trust me. Dark of the Moon. What does that even mean? This movie hands down is the worst title out of all of them. Like, what happened here? Like, if you actually take the time to analyze the title of this movie, you will quickly realize it makes no sense. What is a Dark of the Moon? Do you mean to say Dark Side of the Moon? Because that makes way more sense, Michael Bay. To be fair, it does have the best title card animation out of all of them. Anyways, I like this movie's story way more than the last movie's story because it actually feels like a Transformers story that fits within their universe way more. With Revenge of the Fallen, I felt that the whole mystical artifact and Egypt theme just didn't fit the Transformers brand at all, and it was just weird at the end of the day. With Dark of the Moon, it feels way more grounded and makes more sense within the Transformers universe. Also, Sentinel is a way better villain than the Fallen because he actually has a plan that makes sense and just doesn't want to blow up the sun because he wants to. Honestly, I think Dark of the Moon should have been the sequel to the first movie rather than Revenge of the Fallen. And I like how this movie still acknowledges that Revenge of the Fallen happened, even though they made this movie knowing people didn't like that movie. I mean, it sounds like people from another famous company needs to start taking notes. Honestly, the main thing that keeps this movie back for me is the beginning of it. Don't get me wrong, the opening with Cybertron and the astronauts landing on the moon to find the crashed Ark is great, but as soon as you see Rosie's butt appear on the screen, that's when the movie tanks for a little bit. The problem with the first act of this movie is that it has all the same problems as Revenge of the Fallen. It focuses too much on Sam's life and less on what the Autobots are doing. Sam's parents, although they're not in it as much as they were in the last one, are still really annoying whenever they do show up. There is still a lot of typical unfunny Michael Bay humor that just isn't funny, and there's even one joke in this movie that I never understood, and even when I rewatched this movie for the video, I still don't get it.
Killer, a stone cold killer.
So take charge, cigar?
Take charge, Viking, barbarian, of course, it's me. Pow! I'm here.
We are not looking for that here.
If someone knows what this joke means, please let me know what it means in the comments because I've seen this movie multiple times and I still just don't get it. And then there are also just multiple scenes that just don't even need to be in the movie. Like, look at this scene and tell me why it needs to be in the movie.
Suck up, no toolery.
Yes, Mr. Brazos.
Why is Chantel using what appears to be a red cup from the red floor when we are on the yellow floor?
I'm on it.
It is a visual and therefore a visceral betrayal. Stop it.
Such a dumbass.
Disgusting. Thank you.
Overall, the beginning of this movie just makes it drag on for a while because you honestly just don't care what's happening with any of these characters. But like I said before, once it gets to the highway scene, Dark of the Moon starts to slap. The movie just becomes way more interesting from that point on because you actually get to know where the movie's heading to, unlike before. Although I don't think there's a fight scene in this movie that's as good as the forest battle from the last one. That would be pretty hard to top though, not gonna lie. I do feel that the action in this movie is way more consistent. When it came to Revenge of the Fallen, I felt that the only fight scene people talked about was the forest battle, and I think that's just because the rest of the action in that movie was just kinda meh. With Dark of the Moon, there are multiple action scenes that are great and memorable. You have the short battle between Shockwave and Optimus Prime in the beginning, the highway chase with the Dreads versus Bumblebee, Sideswipe, and Dino, which then leads into the Mexican standoff with Ironhide. And then pretty much all the last 45 minutes of this movie is great, especially with the iconic scene where Optimus flies in and he pretty much just gets a kill streak. Now let's talk about the characters in this movie, and we'll start with the humans just to get them out of the way. Sam Wiki-Woo is back once again, and instead of him being in college, he's looking for a job now. Shia's acting is actually pretty good at some parts, but it's just a shame that Michael Bay makes him do stupid stuff that just ruins his performance.
not hit my car. It's a collector's item.
Carly's fine in more ways than one, but she's no Megan Fox, but I really don't have a problem with her in this movie, but she does what she has to do. Simmons is back once again, and he actually has a way more interesting role in this movie than he did in the last one. He got rich off the events of the last one, and he actually has an assistant named Dutch, and they have a few interesting scenes that I actually don't mind. Lennox and Epps are back, and they literally do the same exact stuff as they usually do in these movies. Frances McDormand's character is quite literally a carbon copy of the guy from the last movie, although I will say she isn't as annoying as that other guy. Ken Jeong is in it for some reason, and he's...
Deep Wang. Deep Wang.
I'm not. Oh.
When should I come back? When should I come back?
Come back when you learn some manners! Oh, shit! Huh? Who wants some chicken dinner now, bitch? Cause somebody messed with the wrong wang today!
Yeah. And then Patrick Dempsey plays the human villain, and as a kid I didn't expect him to be a bad guy, but if I was my age watching this back then I wouldn't have been surprised how he's a bad guy considering how big of a name he is, and they wouldn't cast him to play some small role. Alright, now let's talk about the Transformers, and we'll start with the Autobots. Optimus Prime is back, and he now has his iconic trailer from G1, and it transforms into a little battle station, which is pretty cool. They also redesigned his ribcage for some reason. I don't know why they felt the need to do that, but okay. Also, toward the end of the movie, when Optimus kills the giant drill thing, Shockwave gets pissed and shoots Optimus and gets tangled up in some cables, and I kid you not, he gets stuck there for like 30 minutes. You see the wreckers drive up to try to help him, and then it cuts away to something else, and then 30 minutes later it cuts back and the wreckers are still trying to get Optimus untangled. I don't know, I guess I just found that pretty funny, I guess. Bumblebee is Bumblebee, and I pretty much have nothing new to say about him, but I do find it funny how they try to kill him off toward the end of it. I'm like, bro, he literally has too much plot armor. They can't kill him. That's literally how they make all their sales, is off him. Ratchet actually has a somewhat dedicated scene to him with Optimus, although he still barely does anything in this movie. And then we have Ironhide, who is just as cool as ever, and I'm so glad nothing bad happens to him. No!
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Yo, Kobe. Yo, Kobe! Where this boy at? Huh? Bro, what? Bro, you good?
They killed him!
Bro, what? Why are you in the tub?
They killed him! Ironhide is dead!
Are these Transformers?
Yes!
What the?
They killed Ironhide!
Bro, he's not even. He's not real, bro.
He's dead!
Chill out, bro. Get up.
Ironhide's death tore me apart as a kid. I mean, he was my favorite new character after they killed Jazz in the first movie, and honestly, Ironhide just felt like a mainstay. Even rewatching this scene and seeing him slowly fall apart still breaks my heart to this day. Wow, they really just killed two of my favorite characters. You suck, Michael Bay. Sideswipe is given a little bit more to do, but like Ratchet, he kinda ends up just being a cool background character after a scene with Ironhide's over. Now let's talk about some of the new Autobots they added to this movie, and first up is... whoever that's supposed to be. So this thing's name is Q, and he's supposed to be heavily inspired off Wheeljack, and I don't even know what Michael Bay was smoking here. If you couldn't tell, he's supposed to look like Albert Einstein, but that just does not translate into a robot well at all, and he just looks terrible. I guarantee you Albert rolled in his grave after finding out what they did to him. But thankfully this abomination does die later on in the movie, so that's good. We can all go home happy. Dino is a really cool character they added to this movie, but I gotta rant about Ferrari really quick. Ferrari is hands down the worst car company. Michael Bay had to do so many tweaks just to get his character to be in this movie. Originally, Dino was supposed to be Mirage from G1, but Ferrari didn't like that name, so they had to settle with Dino. He was supposed to go invisible like he did in G1, but Ferrari didn't like that, so it was just straight up scrapped for the movie. I'm pretty sure he also just wasn't allowed to have guns because during the highway scene you see Bumblebee and Sideswipe all weaponized in their car mode, and Dino is just driving around like he's pretending to do something. Like, don't get me wrong, the blades are cool and all that, but what is he gonna do when a Decepticon is shooting at him from far away? Is he just gonna run away? Cause that's not very cool. Ferrari was also very picky on how the car had to be filmed and how much screen time Dino had, and there were just things they just wouldn't allow him to do for some reason. Ferrari also gave Hasbro a hard time with the license to his toy as they couldn't come to an agreement, and we are only now getting his toy in 2021, 10 years after this movie came out, and he still doesn't have the Ferrari license. Look, Ferrari, if you guys ever watch this and decide to put me on your blacklist or whatever, I don't care. I just want to let you guys know you suck. Then we have the Wreckers, which are actually really cool additions to this movie, with my favorite one being Roadbuster, but they're really only in the movie at the very end of it, so they don't really get a lot of time to shine. That should be it for all the Autobots, so now let's move on to the Decepticons. Sentinel Prime probably has the best bait design out of all the movies, if I'm being honest, and I really just like the way he looks. I remember being shocked when he turned evil, but if I was a little bit older when I first watched this movie, then it would be really obvious. Despite that though, I really like his character, and he was voiced by the late Leonard Nimoy, who also voiced Galvatron in the original 80s movie. At first I really hated Megatron's design in this movie, but I slowly grew to like it as time went on, but I really don't like how he transforms into a truck though. I really like how he's still battle damaged from getting shot in the face from the second movie with his own blaster, so he puts a little cloth over his face to try to hide it. There's a scene where Megatron's tire is clipping through the stairs, and now whenever you see this movie you won't be able to unsee it, so you're welcome. Also at the end of this movie when he dies is literally the funniest thing ever. Optimus Prime literally Mortal Kombat fatality kills him. Like, look at this.
Who would you be without me, Prime? Time to find out.
First of all, if these movies were humans, this movie would be rated R. Megatron is literally steaming with lava coming out of him. And second, why didn't Optimus Prime do this in the first movie? Optimus was getting slapped around in the first movie by him, and you're telling me that he was able to take him out in like 10 seconds while missing a whole arm in this one? That budget must have been running out fast. Starscream is pretty much the same as he was in the last one, which is pretty good, but I don't have a lot to say about him other than I'm one of the few people that actually liked his death scene. I mean, I don't know, I thought it was just very fitting for his character. I also remember once he died, I said to myself, yeah, this is definitely going to be the last one. Man, I was so wrong. We got scammed on Shockwave. They put this man in every trailer like he was going to be a main threat, but he is barely in this movie. He's in it in the very beginning of this movie with Optimus, and then he disappears for like an hour and a half until he shows up again for the final battle, and I honestly forgot he was in the movie when I first saw it. And it's a shame too, because I really like his design, and he has a cool driller bot thing as his companion, which is dope, but even the drill thing has more screen time than he does, and the drill thing was way harder to animate than him. Soundwave is a slap in the face once again, but I like how they at least made him be with the other Decepticons this time around, and he's just not sitting in space doing nothing like he was in the last one. But his design is still really generic for a character as big as Soundwave, and then he just dies in a very generic way too, so his character was literally just wasted in these movies. Also, Soundwave took his sweet time to shoot Bumblebee here. When it came to them killing Q, Barricade and this guy just shoot him immediately. He was so ugly they just knew they had to kill him as soon as possible. But when it came to Soundwave killing Bumblebee, he just didn't decide to pull the trigger at all. I guess Soundwave had a crush on Bumblebee or something. I don't know what happened here. Laserbeak is the minion they use for Soundwave's pet in this movie, and he's alright, I guess. I mean, I just kind of find it weird how he can talk, because he just didn't talk at all in G1. The Dreads are a pretty cool addition to this movie, but I honestly just don't have much to say about them at all. They're just pretty cool characters. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up Dark of the Moon. In the end, Dark of the Moon isn't as good as the original 2007 movie, but it's honestly a very close second for me. If the first act of this movie wasn't so bland, then I honestly think it would be better than the first. I still do recommend this movie if you haven't seen it yet though. Just know it gets better around the highway chase scene. I forgot to mention the main theme for this movie, which is Iridescent by Linkin Park. It's definitely my least favorite song they've made for the Transformers movies, but it's not a bad song at all. It just really isn't my cup of tea, but it really does have a cool music video though. And that concludes the Transformers trilogy, and overall it's not bad minus the second one, and thankfully they didn't make any more after that. What was that?
Where am I? Who are you? Why am I strapped up in this? Bro, I did not, I don't know what I did. I'm sorry. Like, bro, this is not it. I don't know what this was happening. Like, I just was talking about a Transformers movie. Like, bro, I don't know who you are, but you better get me out of this right now. I gotta get back home. Okay, I'll stop. All right, I'll shut up. Why'd the TV just turn on? Why'd you turn the TV on? No. 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 It can't be. No. 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 No.